Hey up everyone, this is the first in what will be a series of videos because something has been bugging me recently, and so I decided to look into the amount of manufacturer recalls in the motorcycle industry as a long-term project. Then I saw that Triumph had opened the year with a bang and already announced 2 manufacturer recalls in 2025. One is on the Tiger 1200s and the other on their all-new, all-conquering competition dirt bike, the TF250X. You know, reliability comes high on my list when I look at bikes, so this subject is something that fits into that idea pretty well. Over time, the videos will show who is making the most mistakes, but also who is prepared to admit and fix their mistakes. So it isn't as simple as avoid these bikes. The manufacturers who do a timely recall and a proper fix should be applauded, I think. Admitting you are wrong is something that seems to be getting rarer these days, and we know from the KTM saga I've been covering that not all faults are recognised by the manufacturers or officially recalled. So I do give Triumph credit for that at least. I have to thank FEMA, the Federation of European Motorcyclist Association, for the source of much of the information, because it's not widely publicised in the traditional motorcycle press much of the time, because they are so tied to the manufacturers who would rather you not know. Even in this case, you look on the Triumph website or follow the link from FEMA and it takes you to a page where you can enter your VIN number to see if a particular bike is affected by any recalls. But any announcement of the recalls themselves are sadly a bit like trying to find Yeti in a snowstorm. Yes, there has been some minor press coverage, but it's mostly just a couple of sentences hidden away in a place you are least likely to find it. Finding out is a bit like playing Where's Wally on a global scale. If you do a search, you will see the only places it's being discussed is either on Reddit, until Elon buys that, or on the Triumph Explorer forums in the case of the first recall. Now, before I go on, I have to ask if you can try and remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Sharing the video anywhere you think people will be interested helps us massively too, especially now YouTube has demoted everything again. I'm glad some of you still find your way to the channel, but you can see from the figures that many of the subscribers never even see the videos. Most of my views these days come direct from Google rather than from YouTube, so at least that's something I guess, but it doesn't pay for the upkeep of the channel. You will realise by now, I'm sure, that I don't come high up on any sponsor's Christmas list, because I don't just say every new bike is wonderful and the next big thing. So I do need your help. If you would like to help us stay truly independent, you can make a one-off donation or join our group of monthly subscribers on the Ko-fi link in the description. Monthly subscribers get access to a private group where I can share videos that YouTube sees unfit in some way or another. People who make a one-off donation will get exactly the same access as all the monthly subscribers do, but it resets after 30 days. So for just a £1 minimum donation, you can find out if you think the extra is worth it to you. Thanks as always to all the supporters for your donations. Without you, the channel just wouldn't exist. But anyway, back to the subject in hand. The first of the Triumph recalls affects the Triumph Tiger 1200 GT, the Tiger 1200 GT Pro, and the Tiger 1200 GT Explorer. It affects bikes built between the 17th of August 2021 and the 12th of October 2024. So that's a long time. The announcement was that tyre can wear unevenly, compromising the 0-degree reinforcement. This can lead the tread to become partially detached and or suffer a sudden loss of air pressure, which can cause the loss of control of the vehicle and increase the risk of accidents and injuries. You don't say. Beyond the problem itself, That means it took over 3 years of production for Triumph to recognise an inherent problem with exploding tyres. How many accidents, broken limbs, time off work and repair costs has that caused in the 3 years it took them to acknowledge the problem? Now, I know the big Tiger isn't a massive seller, but this must have affected a good amount of riders for the recall to be recognised, and I can imagine wrestling with a 250 kilo, 150 horsepower bike, trying to slow it down from speed with a tyre delaminating would leave a brown stain in most people's pants. But for them to not realise or not acknowledge it for over 4 years is ridiculous at best. In my honest opinion, this is a manufacturer putting rider safety at the very bottom of their important list, and I can't see it any other way. What it means in reality is since 2021, riders have been having this problem and fighting to get it recognised before Triumph were forced into a position where they had no choice when the EU categorised it as a safety issue. What it did remind me of is the same thing happening with the new Suzuki DE800 P-Strom last year. That was an issue with the Dunlop Trail Max. This one is with the Metzeler Torrents next. So have tyre manufacturers forgotten how to make tyres that don't delaminate? For heaven's sake, there were recalls from Avon and Dunlop recently too. Anyway, Triumph have now officially recalled the bikes affected, although I imagine most won't have the tyres concerned on anymore. So I assume the recall cost them very little, and I guess that means the bean counters got it right from Triumph's perspective. They didn't lose sales by announcing a recall when it first became apparent, and by delaying longer than the expected lifetime of the tyres, there is little or nothing to pay now on any of the bikes affected. I suppose for the buyers who only ever bimble down to the local coffee shop once a month to talk about their incredible motorcycle adventures on their obese triples, it might still be relevant. So I guess there could still be a few bikes running around on their original rubber, but by putting it off until now, it won't cost Triumph anything. Most riders will have changed the tyres many moons ago. Also, by minimising any publicity, their polished reputation for producing quality motorcycles won't be affected too much. And if you thought that one was bad, just wait for it, because the next one is, as far as I'm concerned, both unbelievable and inexcusable. The all-singing, all-dancing Triumph TF250X has, we are told by the very well-paid Ricky Carmichael, been years in development, and not by Bajaj, honest Gov. It was finally launched to gasps of "how much?" across the whole industry when it was released last year, and I talked about it in the video linked above when it was released. Built, at least in theory, as a bike to beat KTM and everyone else in the dirt bike market. In Triumph's words, they have spared nothing in developing their new entry into the dirt bike market. I just wish they'd concentrated more on reality than listening to their own marketing department. You see, the new TF250X has rather an unusual flaw, caused by a switch block they call the switch cube. This switch cube controls everything basically, power up, start, stop, etc., and the fault was on the bikes produced between the 20th of July 2023 and the 16th of August 2024, so just over a year of production. That's all. Despite the fact it is a competition dirt bike that will get washed with a high-pressure washer on a daily basis and more when in true competition use, they forgot to make the main switch waterproof. Yes, you heard that right. The switch that acts as a power-up, starter and kill switch is not watertight. Now honestly, can you believe that? Even cheap AliExpress dirt bikes can get that right, so why not Triumph? The real killer is that in Triumph's own words, the switch cube is not stable in specific conditions, and could potentially self-start. Those specific conditions are exposure to brake fluid, which when placed next to the brake reservoir is hardly ideal, but far more ridiculous when it is exposed to high pressure water. Now come on, have you ever known a dirt bike that hasn't been routinely cleaned with a pressure washer to within an inch of its life? Is making the switches on a dirt bike waterproof not the most basic requirement? Clever old Triumph obviously never specified that in the build spec they sent to the Bajaj group. And don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming Bajaj here. Anyone who has worked with subcontractors knows they will do everything possible to extend their margins as long as the job stays within spec. So I don't blame Bajaj. The blame for this lays squarely on the shoulders of Triumph. They, as they so eloquently told us in all of the marketing material, did every last bit of research and development on this bike themselves, with no help from Bajaj at all. Bajaj just built it. And if you believe that, can I have 15 Bitcoin sent to the address in the description so I can release my fortune from the bank that's been left to me by my uncle, who was the king of Burkina Faso, and I'll pay you back, honest. But I digress. Can you imagine you've been out in race 1 on a muddy day, you come back to the paddock, get the pressure washer out and clean off yourself and the bike, leave it in first gear, sit down for a minute to make a cup of coffee, and the bike decides to start itself and careers off down the track to compete on its own without a rider. Maybe they could get ChatGPT as a sponsor. Have any of you ever heard of a self-starting bike before? This is the joy of electronics on motorbikes. Fine when it works, but not when it doesn't. The biggest enemies of any electronics are water ingress, vibration and dirt. 3 things that are intrinsically linked to any use on motorbikes, but particularly relevant on an MX bike. Yet the manufacturers still persist on shoving more and more of it on all the bikes they sell. I wonder why. These weren't the only recalls of January 2025, but I will cover the others in a separate video. Suffice to say that last year there were no recalls until halfway through February, yet already just in January this year we have 4 separate major safety recalls, which doesn't bode well for the year ahead. They can't blame it on a worldwide epidemic this time either, unless the symptoms of that epidemic are ineptitude. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm interested in your thoughts on making this an ongoing series on the channel. Would it be useful for you to know more about the bikes that are recalled and what the problems are? Thanks as always to everyone, but especially the BAREBONESMC family who support me with donations. Without them, this just wouldn't be possible. Try and remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Sharing the video anywhere you think people will be interested helps us too now the YouTube algorithm has thrown us in the bin again. And if you would like to help us stay truly independent, you can make a one-off donation or join our group of monthly subscribers on the Ko-fi link in the description below. Monthly subscribers, as I've said, get access to a private group where I share videos that we can't screen on YouTube. And the people who make a one-off donation will get exactly the same access as the monthly subscribers. It just resets after 30 days. That means for a minimum donation of just £1, you get to see if you think the extra content is worth more than £1 a month. And if you do, you choose the amount you can afford to chip in each month. Thanks as always to all the supporters for your help keeping the channel going. Without you, it wouldn't exist. And always remember, keep your spanners close and your keys even closer. Ride free, everyone!